Welcome back into the Bangtan Universe wormhole. This video is part of the 7 series, in which we profile the 7 main characters of the Bangtan Universe, one at a time. Each video is designed to give you an overview of the character's personality, motivations, struggles, and growth. To profile the 7 characters, we will need to discuss their storylines within the BU, so that means major spoilers ahead. In this video, we'll take a look at TaeHyung, the wild card. Before we get into his story, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you won't miss out on our newest content. Now let's get started. TaeHyung lives with his older sister and their father in a rundown apartment. Their father is a violent alcoholic who beats his children, although TaeHyung's sister tries to shield him by taking all the beatings for both of them. Their mother abandoned the family years ago because she couldn't stand the abuse, but she didn't take the kids with her. TaeHyung noticed her leaving and followed her for some time, but she never looked back. By the time TaeHyung reaches his teens, he's full of rage and hate for both of his parents, but he loves them at the same time. He vents these and other emotions in graffiti rather than words. The supplementary notes describe 2 important events from TaeHyung's childhood. The first involves a dog named Dongyi, who's owned by a supermarket manager. TaeHyung likes to play with Dongyi, and when he sees an older kid playing with him one day, TaeHyung gets protective. He tells the other boy he can't have the dog, but then he tries to strike up a conversation because the kid doesn't seem threatening. In fact, he actually seems dazed. He's slow to respond to TaeHyung's questions. He doesn't ask any questions of his own, and he acts like he's not entirely sure where he is, or maybe even who he is. But finally he tells TaeHyung that his name is Kim Seok-jin. This scene may be more important than it appears, since number 1, Seok-jin's behavior is very strange, and number 2, dogs are a recurring symbol in TaeHyung's story. He always loves them, but he can never hold on to them. This is especially apparent in the Stigma MV, where the loss of the white puppy symbolizes the loss of TaeHyung's innocence. TaeHyung's second childhood experience happens almost exactly 10 months after the first, and it's much, much darker. TaeHyung comes home one day to find that his father has returned after a very, very long absence. It seems like he might have been gone for months, but we can't be sure. Anyway, TaeHyung is overjoyed and runs into his father's arms, only to realize the man reeks of alcohol. His eyes are bloodshot, and his beard is a mess. Then the next thing TaeHyung knows, his father is beating him unconscious. Now this is the kind of behavior that BU theorists expect from TaeHyung's father. He just is a violent drunk. But if you read this note and the other one I just gave you, you'll see that Mr. Kim was not always like this. When TaeHyung met Seok-jin, he talked about his father as if he was a typical friendly family man. And that idea is reinforced by TaeHyung's joy when he sees his father after such a long absence. Then when his father beats him, TaeHyung thinks, "That was not my dad." So what caused this drastic change in Mr. Kim's behavior? It seems to be connected to his long absence. But why was he absent for so long? Right now all we have are some wild speculations, which we may share with you later. Hopefully we'll get some real answers in the next era. TaeHyung never talks about his family with his friends. Instead, he cultivates a reputation for being happy, silly, and a little bit dim. But he isn't any of those things. In fact, on one occasion, he hears Seok-jin tattling on Yoongi to the principal, and he notices that Namjoon overhears the conversation as well. But when Seok-jin realizes Namjoon heard him, Namjoon says it doesn't matter. TaeHyung decides to trust Namjoon, who's older than him, but he doesn't forget the incident, and it comes back to bite all 3 of them later on. When the group splits up in year 20, TaeHyung and Namjoon lose track of each other for a while, but they reconnect when TaeHyung gets caught spraying graffiti at a gas station. Namjoon finds him after the gas station owner has beaten him, and the 2 begin hanging out again. TaeHyung even spends the night at Namjoon's container home whenever his father gets violent. Namjoon notices the bruises on his body but never asks about them. In year 22, Taehyung's father injures his back at work, but his manager refuses to pay for his hospital treatment, so Mr. Kim stays home for day upon day, drinking harder than ever to dull the pain and getting angrier than ever because of his mistreatment. Then on May 20th, an overstressed Taehyung comes home from work to find his father beating his sister, and Taehyung just snaps. He smashes an empty bottle and uses the broken glass to stab his father to death. Then he flees the apartment, but the police find him and arrest him on May 22nd. This, of course, is a tragedy Seok-jin must prevent with his time traveling. But as soon as he begins looping, Taehyung begins dreaming about the loops. He sees all his friends suffering and dying, and he's so worried about them that he asks both Namjoon and Seok-jin about the dreams. They brush him off. Once Seok-jin has figured out how to save his other 5 friends, he apparently assumes Taehyung's problem has solved itself. This is understandable since he's never gotten far enough into a time loop to see what happens on the day Taehyung murders his father, and what he does see is Taehyung hanging out with his friends as if nothing has changed. Seok-jin decides to celebrate by taking everyone to the beach. But since they're there on May 22nd, the police can't find and arrest Taehyung, who really has murdered his father again. He's still free, but he can't live with his guilt any longer, so he climbs the lookout tower and, after one last look at his friends, jumps off and drowns. Seok-jin begins looping again, and after a lot of trial and error, he discovers that the key to saving Taehyung is HYYH. You can watch our video summarizing the Bangtan Universe Part 1 for details. Again, the friends return to the beach. Then they walk to a cottage Seok-jin has rented for the night. But this is where Taehyung cements his status as a wild card. He's already on edge because he's been experiencing deja vu all day, remembering how he jumped off the lookout tower, and even worse, remembering how he killed his father over and over. So when Seok-jin begins a confession which is meant to be about his time travels, he only gets as far as back in high school before Taehyung interrupts. He thinks Seok-jin is going to apologize for tattling on Yoongi, an act which got Yoongi expelled, and he thinks it's far too late for Seok-jin to apologize about that. Taehyung shouts at Seok-jin, and when Namjoon tries to calm him down, Taehyung snaps at him over a different misunderstanding. The celebration breaks up, everyone goes their separate ways, and Taehyung and Namjoon are estranged for a very long time. The HYYH Era shows the boys dealing with all the temptations, mistakes, and general confusion that come with growing up. Each of the older boys, aside from Seok-jin, becomes a mentor to one of the younger boys, and HYYH mentors Taehyung. We don't have any clear information about what this involves, but the 2 Blood, Sweat, and Tears MVs hint that Taehyung is afraid to grow up any farther. This makes sense because he has all these faint memories of dying and of killing his father, so he sees himself as a sinner. But somehow he comes to accept himself anyway. And he might even help the quote-unquote less sinful Seok-jin to accept the ambiguities in himself. In the Love Yourself era, each boy is paired with a girl he has something in common with, and if he connects with her, he can see himself in someone else and grow even farther. Taehyung meets his girl at the convenience store where he works. He stops her from shoplifting, an act he's committed himself, and over time they become friends. She seems to be a runaway with a home life just as bad as his, and he takes her under his wing as best he can. For Taehyung, this includes teaching her the fine art of graffiti. But one night, when they're chased by the police, Taehyung gives himself up so the girl can escape, and he never sees her again. Eventually, though, he spots a tiny bit of graffiti she's left for him, saying, "It's not your fault." Now Taehyung can be at peace because he knows she didn't run away from him. He was a true friend, and he took good care of her. Taehyung gets another chance to take care of someone on the night of Jungkook's welcome back party. Jungkook was just released from the hospital after a severe injury, and his friends throw a celebration. After that, Taehyung goes home to find out that his mother has visited the apartment, and she told his sister that she misses Taehyung. So he immediately sets out to find her, but not because he misses her. He wants to see if she's actually happy living without her family. Jungkook tags along because he followed Taehyung home after the party, and Taehyung didn't notice him until it was too late. So they walk across the city together. Taehyung has only a vague idea of where his mother lives now. It's far away on the other side of the river, and Jungkook's leg isn't fully recovered yet. So after the boys cross the bridge, they stop for ramen. But this decision is a disaster. First, a drunk man in a shabby overcoat steals their food, and then the man gets attacked by a gang of punks. TaeHyung and Jungkook try to help the man, but the punks beat them up too. And as they're driving away, the mirror on their car clips Jungkook's leg and injures it all over again. The boys can't walk any farther, and Jungkook apologizes for ruining TaeHyung's mission. But TaeHyung tells Jungkook the same thing the girl told him, that it's not his fault. Then they grab a bus, and on the way home, TaeHyung tells Jungkook about the night his mother left. It's probably the first time he's told anyone that story. When Seokjin's girl is killed, the loop resets and TaeHyung's attempt to find his mother is erased from history. But he repeats his journey in the map of the Seoul Era, and this time he finds her. He watches her from a distance, and he realizes that's enough. He can let go of his anger and move on. But TaeHyung's mother isn't a major part of his journey in this era, so let's move on. The big news in the map of the Seoul Era is that TaeHyung becomes a wild card again in a far more positive way. In fact, he spearheads the quest to save Seokjin's soul. The era begins with Seokjin trapped in another series of time loops. Namjoon keeps dying in a fire, and Seokjin can't find a way to save him. So finally he asks the cat for help, and in return for a tiny scrap of information, the cat steals all his positive emotions and memories of his friends. Seokjin becomes a cold, calculating shell of himself, and as the story goes on, he begins to slip into active evil. TaeHyung is the first to notice that something is wrong. He dreams that Seokjin is back in town before anyone actually sees him, and in his dream, Seokjin's eyes are cold and dead and frightening. So TaeHyung sets out to find out if his dream is true, and it turns out it is. Once he sees Seokjin for himself and sees how creepy he's become, TaeHyung starts spying on him. He notices that Seokjin is helping his friends in secret, saving them from horrible circumstances, but he doesn't seem to care about his friends. Then TaeHyung has a nightmare in which he sees Seokjin looking out over the city at night and making a phone call that apparently erases the whole world. But the change in Seokjin creates changes in the time loop, butterfly effects. When the friends go to the beach, as they always do, TaeHyung pesters Seokjin to tell him what's wrong. Seokjin gets so annoyed that he takes the group picture holding the camera rather than using a timer, which means he isn't in the photo. Then he crumbles it up and throws it on the ground. And then he abandons the boys at the beach. As a result, the group never reaches the cottage, which means TaeHyung and Namjoon never have a falling out. And that means Namjoon is ready to help TaeHyung find out whether his dreams are real. They travel around the city looking for landmarks and find much more than they bargained for. You'll get the full version of their quest in our video summarizing the Bangtan Universe Part 2. In this video, we'll just hit the highlights and focus on TaeHyung's role. He and Namjoon uncover a criminal conspiracy to destroy parts of Seongju. And by accidentally revealing the conspiracy to the press, they start a butterfly effect that eventually saves Namjoon's life. They also make major discoveries about Seokjin's father and his friend group. And as TaeHyung continues to pressure Seokjin, the cat's control over him begins to crack. Seokjin finally texts TaeHyung, asking for help, and TaeHyung calls upon the whole friend group to help restore Seokjin's memories. His memories do return, but slowly, and he still doesn't feel an emotional connection to the images in his mind. So he goes to his room alone and begins looking through his old Polaroids. Then he notices something shining in his pocket, and reaching inside, he pulls out the photo he took at the beach, where his friends are standing by the truck, but he's not with them. TaeHyung recovered the picture after Seokjin threw it away, and he slipped it into Seokjin's pocket. The photo carries him back in time, literally, to the very first time he took that picture, when he and his friends were just happy to be together, and nothing too horrible had happened yet. Seokjin's lost emotions come flooding back, and when he returns to the present, he sees that the Polaroid in his hands is changing. He's with his friends again. Seokjin's importance to the BU is easy to see. Armies notice something's up with him as soon as they start digging into the story. It takes them a bit longer to notice TaeHyung's special role. He's silly and childish at first. Then he becomes a tragic figure, whom Seokjin must save from two different disasters. But when the heroic Seokjin almost becomes a monster, It's the tragic, childish TaeHyung who saves him, and possibly saves the world. Of course, the cat is still out there, and it's angry. Watch these videos next to find out how it might take revenge on the 7 friends, and how they might stage a jailbreak.